Hey guys, I'm going to show you a quick recipe for some luxurious Caribbean style fried dumplings. Each culture has their own variation of dumplings, there's different names for it. Some people call them bakes, there's all sorts. So you've probably tried these before in some shape or form, but this is how a lot of people make them in the Caribbean. I'm actually doing what I'll call some OTT ones because you can make it with just flour, water, a bit of salt. But I like to make them really light and fluffy in the middle and just really rich and tasty. So I use yeast, just the easy bake stuff. I add a little butter, Himalayan salt. You can use any salt, but that's what I use to cook with. I've got some watered down oat milk, and that's just to add to the richness of it. And I'm going to use self-raising flour, so it's like self-raising flour with the yeast on top to get it nice and extra fluffy. Anyhow, there's no measurements, you just go by sight and feel, and I'm going to add the flour to start with. And once you've made it a few times, you kind of work out what sort of proportions you need in terms of how many you're making. And I just wing it each time. Anything left over gets eaten, so it's not a problem. Tiny bit more. I'm actually going to make some ackee and callaloo to go in these, but I'll film that as a separate video another time. Otherwise you guys are going to be here all day. I'm going to throw in my yeast. Give that a little stir through. You do need to add a bit of salt to this, otherwise they taste quite bland, so you need to balance it out. And I find that Himalayan salt isn't as strong as regular salt, so it looks like quite a bit, but once it's mixed through you won't notice it. Add a tiny bit more. Stir that through. Some butter. This is Flora's new Freedom dairy-free spread. Make sure you get the green and white tub because there's a similar tub which is green which isn't vegan. Let me get my salt spoon. And this is something that you're going to fry, so that's why I'm quite over the top with the ingredients that I'm putting. And if you're going to do something like this once in a while, you might as well go all out. You can mix that through, but who's got time for that? So this is the same technique as with my dumplings in my soup video, if you've watched that Caribbean vegan soup. And less is more. So you pour in, start mixing, then you judge whether you need more or not. And I start mixing with the spoon, otherwise you end up your hands covered in all sorts. And as you're mixing through, you can feel whether you need more and you can see whether you need more, and I definitely do. So we just create another well in the middle. And the reason I've watered down the oat milk, it's a very thick milk. And you want to get some lightness in there. You're not trying to make a dense mixture, you're just trying to get a nice dough-like mixture. And it'd be similar to pizza dough, but it won't be sticky. Like you can see the flour's forming into more blocks or lumps. And what I'm going to do, I should have used a bigger bowl, but I haven't got a larger glass bowl. I'm going to add about half of this milk. And you can use water instead of milk. And I'm getting to the point where I'm going to have to jump in with my hands soon and mix. And make sure when you're making these that you clean your nails, under your nails. Otherwise you're just getting nasties in your food. Right, I should start mixing now, but I always try and go in right at the last minute. As you can see, it's already forming a dough. Scrape this off, and it's time to get my hands in. So you're just kneading it all together. And remember, you're not trying to get an overly firm dough, it's just a nice pizza dough sort of texture. Then once we're done with this stage, we're going to leave it to rise a bit because it's got the yeast in there. There's also another variation of this where they put sugar in it, and it's called a festival dumpling, and it's usually rolled out into like a fat cigar cigar shape. So if you go into like a Caribbean store, you'll see different types of dumplings. There are ones that just do loads of different shapes because people like different shaped dumplings, but you tend to get a round one and the long cigar one, which is a festival one, which is sweeter. I think they add sugar and cinnamon, but don't quote me on that. I'm going to add a tiny bit of flour just so I can work this a bit more. Now this is good to go. I'm going to leave this to rise for a bit. Once it's risen, then I'll show you what to do next. So the dough's risen quite nicely. I could leave it for a bit longer, but I'm hungry, so I want to hurry up and get it on. All I'm going to do is knead it one more time. And if you keep it covered whilst it's rising, so you don't get a hard coating on the edge. So as you can see, it's quite dough-like. So what I'm going to do, this is my dough board. I'm going to roll it into a sausage shape, which it doesn't want to do because it's so... And all I'm going to do is get a knife and cut it into equal portions. Then I'm just going to chuck that in the bowl, so they're ready for me to start rolling them out. Okay, I'm going to show you how I form the balls. I like mine to be nice and smooth. You can do round circles, whatever shape you like, but I tend to start by just pressing it together. And then I push it into the palm of my hand, and then I bring it together. Then roll. Then I press it down. And if you try and make them all the same size, then they will cook at the same time. And that's how I shape them. So all I'm going to do, I don't know why I say do like that when I'm on camera, but yeah, that's a funny shaped one. So I'm just going to work my way through the dough. Just squash it together. I just like it to have a smooth frying surface when I'm cooking it. But as long as it's cooked, it really doesn't matter. So I press it down, bring it into the middle. Then you're just pressing down. Some people make them slightly thinner in the middle while pressing down. But just play around with it and make it whichever way you like. Hey guys, I've got most of my dough rolled out. I've got the oil in the pan. I've just got vegetable oil. Use whichever is your preference. I wouldn't recommend using olive oil or coconut oil. I don't think it's good to fry in olive oil, and coconut oil will be quite expensive. So yeah, just use a regular oil, sunflower, whichever you prefer. And you want it at a medium to just under high heat. If you have it too high, you'll cook the outside of the dough, but the inside will be doughy and not cooked, which isn't nice. So the aim is to make sure the inside cooks through whilst the outside gets crispy. So it's just about practicing your heat control. And if you want, you can just throw a bit of dough in just to test if the oil's ready or not. And that's not too bad. This is the first time I'm making fried dumplings on this cooker, so I need to get my bearings with it. and it actually seems just right. If not, I can always turn it down. So now all I'm going to do, I'm just pressing down my, very bright, just pressing down my dumplings slightly because they've risen a bit more. Then I'm going to start just popping them in the pan. And I already know I'm going to turn it down just slightly. You can bake these in the oven, I never do. It's either all or nothing with me. It's either it's completely healthy or it's not. So I'm frying them because I like them fried. And as I said earlier, you can make it with just self-rising flour, a bit of water, a bit of salt. But these are my luxury version. But just play around with it until you find what you like. That's the one thing I want you guys to do watching my videos. It's good to be inspired, but you feel more confident if you own what you're doing. If it messes up, it really doesn't matter. That's the only way you're going to learn. Because as long as you cook them at the right temperature, the inside won't absorb all the oil. It's just the outside that gets crispy and absorbs a bit of the oil, but it's not too bad in regards to how much it takes in. So I'm just going to get a fork and just check the first one I put in to see how it's progressing. And it's going nice and brown. See if I can turn it so you can see it. And I'm going to leave it for a bit longer on this side. Because what will happen, the bottom half will be cooking, the top part will still be raw. So as long as you can let it cook through the bottom side, once you turn it over, the other side will be cooked as well. Let me take this little guy out. And this is a non-stick pan, so just be careful if you're using a fork as I am, not to scratch it. I will start turning these over soon. I'll start turning them over now. Can you hear the nice coating on those? And what I'm going to do is put a couple more in there to start cooking. They're small ones, so it'll be fine. And you can use the oil again, so nothing gets wasted. And what you can do, because these are so high, once they've puffed up, you can actually turn them on the side to cook a bit more once you've cooked the other side. And they're coming along nicely. So what I'll start doing is putting them on their sides. Just put them on the sides against the edge of the pan. You don't always need to do this, it just depends on how thick they are. And that's just to make sure that we get right to the centre and it's all cooked through. It will be anyhow, but I just like to be double sure. So now that these are on their sides, I'll get the remainder of the dumplings in and just fry them off. Most of these are pretty much done now, so I'm just going to take them out of the pan and pop them onto some kitchen towel. Look at it. Hopefully you can see what I'm trying to show you. I don't know if you can hear it crunching as it's opened, steam's coming out. Nice and fluffy on the inside. Trust me, it tastes even better than it looks. So yeah, nice and fluffy all the way through. Nice crunchy coating. And oops, I have to eat this one. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Ciao.